Hey students, Mr. Pastel here. I biked out early this morning to Randall's Island. I don't know if any of you guys have been. Here's my bike. And I'm out in nature, which is nice. As you can see, there's trees, there's birds, there's grasses, there's shrubs. There's all kinds of stuff. And it makes me think that I don't want this ecosystem to change. And one thing that might affect this ecosystem is climate change. As you can see, we're not too far from the water. And we know that because of climate change, this water level will rise. So today we're going to talk about how New York City will be affected by climate change. So how will New York City be affected by climate change? In class, near the beginning of the year, we studied kind of overall global effects of climate change. And remember, we planned a climate change island. So we already know a little bit about climate change, but let's talk about New York City specifically. And with that project, we learned some more sustainable ways to support a population of 1,000 people on that island. But I digress. How will New York City be affected by climate change? Okay. We know that climate change involves an overall rise in temperatures for planet Earth, but that's not necessarily the case all over the world. Some places might actually get colder, but New York City will get warmer. If you look here, up until the current time, the temperature is rising. The average throughout the year is a little below 56 degrees Fahrenheit. And here we have a few outcomes. So the highest estimate they have, by 2100, it's almost going to reach 66. That's the high estimate. So 10 degrees would be insane. The low estimate would just be up to maybe around 58. But what's probably going to happen is somewhere about halfway in between. So this pink middle range between like 60 and 64 is probably where we're going to end up for average temperature in the year. Sounds kind of pleasant, but that's the overall year. So it's going to change our winters and change our summers a lot. Rainfall. Because of climate change, rainfall is going to increase up to 8% by now, up to 12% by the 2050s, up to 15% by 2080s. And you may or may not like rain or other precipitation, but that's just what's going to happen because of climate change. Smog. The summers will be hotter, so because they're hotter, the city will trap more smog and pollution where we are. So that's definitely not good for our lungs. And this happens because of ozone. The way that the water and air move will cause an increase in hurricanes. So these hurricanes will go further north. Usually they hit places like Florida, but Hurricane Sandy was a good example of what might happen because of climate change. You might have hurricanes that are stronger, go further north. And finally, we have a New York City sea level rise, which is probably the biggest danger to New York City. So I'm still out here on Randall's Island, and there's different estimates for how much the sea level will rise, but pretty much New York City is surrounded by water. Manhattan is an island, and we're basically on the same island as Long Island. We're Long Island City. So we have to protect ourselves against New York City sea level rise. So this is a picture of what could happen in some of the worst case scenarios. This is actually Long Island City. This is where you are, and Gantry Park and Hunters Point Park South, and this is Brooklyn, Greenpoint, Brooklyn. So I'm actually going to go over to this simulation in Google Earth and show you guys more. So now I'm going to show you guys how to actually visualize sea level rise in Google Earth. So go to google.com/earth. You should end up with something like this. Search sea level rise in this search part here. And then you see under guided tours, sea level rise and the fate of coastal cities. Excuse me. Click that. First it's going to take you to, I think, Greenland. But we're going to fast forward. Skip London. Let's go to New York. So you can choose between kind of a low end and a high end of how much the Earth is going to warm up because of climate change. This is Wall Street. So 2 degrees, a lot of the bottom of Wall Street is already flooded. 4 degrees, it's even more flooded. Let's go back to 2. Let's find our way up to Long Island City. Oh, I just had it. That's Long Island City and Greenpoint right there, and Newtown Creek. So we still have a little bit of Hunters Point, South Park. So this is Long Island City, this is Greenpoint. If I go to 2 degrees, I mean, it's already extremely flooded. The ice caps are going to take a while to melt, but this is what's going to happen if we have 2 degrees of warming. This much will melt. But if we have 4 degrees of warming, we can see even more flooding in Long Island City and Greenpoint. Not good. Almost everything's underwater except for the tallest buildings.